The stars shimmered against the endless void as the void-born armada moved through space like a swarm of metal locusts. Their ships, black and sleek with pulsing blue veins of energy, numbered in the hundreds. At the center of the formation, the massive flagship, Eternal Hunger, dwarfed all others. Inside its command chamber, Supreme Commander Zelthrak gazed at the holographic display of their next target, a small blue-green planet called Earth in the Sol system. Zelthrak was not what humans would consider a person. Its body was a fusion of biological and mechanical parts, standing 9 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian. Its eyes glowed with the same blue energy that powered the ships, and when it spoke, multiple voices echoed in perfect harmony. 12 systems conquered, Zelthrak said to its lieutenants. 12 civilizations added to our collective or erased from existence. The Sol system will be the 13th. The Voidborn had a simple but effective strategy. Arrive at a new star, system, overwhelm any defenses, harvest all useful resources, absorb any beneficial technology, and move on to the next target. They believed their purpose was to perfect the galaxy by incorporating all worthy life into their collective mind. Those who resisted were simply removed. Supreme Commander, one of the lieutenants said, our scouts report unusual activity in the Sol system. The third planet's inhabitants have detected our approach. Zelthrak made a sound like metal grinding against stone. A laugh. It makes no difference. They will fall like all the others. 40 million miles away on the bridge of the USS Defiant, Lieutenant Alan Carter stared at his communication screen with growing horror. The distress signals from the Proxima Centauri colony had been playing for hours, each message more desperate than the last. Then silence. Lieutenant, report, Captain Greg Sullivan ordered. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face weathered by years of service. His brown hair was cut short, military style, and a scar ran from his right eyebrow to his cheekbone, a souvenir from the Mars Rebellion 5 years ago. Sir, final transmission from Proxima Centauri came in 20 minutes ago. Then nothing. Total communications blackout, Carter replied, his voice steady despite the cold fear spreading through his chest. Captain Sullivan nodded grimly. Same pattern as the other colonies. Send the data to Earth Command immediately. The USS Defiant was Earth's most advanced warship, nearly half a mile long with a sleek design that reminded some of ancient sea vessels. It was meant to be humanity's pride, a ship of exploration and discovery. Now it was being fitted for war. In her laboratory, aboard the Defiant, Dr. Olivia Martinez worked frantically analyzing the scattered data on the invaders. Her dark eyes were red from lack of sleep, and her black hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. Screens surrounded her, each showing different aspects of the enemy, their ships, their weapons, their patterns of attack. There has to be a weakness, she muttered to herself. Nothing is invincible. The door slid open with a soft hiss and Chief Engineer Ryan Porter entered. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a mind that could solve complex engineering problems while half asleep. Any progress? He asked, placing a cup of coffee on her desk. Olivia sighed. Maybe. There's something unusual about their shield harmonics. If I could get clearer readings. Well, you better figure it out fast, Porter said. I've been ordered to push our quantum drive beyond safety limits. Captain wants us ready to intercept at Neptune's orbit in 48 hours. At Space Command headquarters in Colorado, Admiral Patricia Winters stood before the Emergency Defense Council. Large screens behind her showed the path of destruction left by the Voidborn Armada. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice firm. The threat we face is unlike anything humanity has encountered. The aliens we now call the Voidborn have conquered 12 star systems in 8 months. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their ships can repair themselves using harvested materials. And now they're heading straight for Earth. The room erupted in voices, some angry, some frightened. What about evacuation? Asked one councilman. Admiral Winters shook her head. Where? We've seen their speeds. There's nowhere in our star system they can't reach. And we don't have the capacity to evacuate more than a fraction of Earth's population. "So what's your plan?" demanded a woman in a business suit. "The USS Defiant," Winters replied. "Our most advanced ship, with our best crew. We're equipping it with experimental weapons based on what little we know about the Voidborn. Captain Sullivan has orders to intercept them at Neptune and prevent them from reaching Earth at all costs." In the crew quarters of the Defiant, Lieutenant Maria Vasquez led her security team through another combat drill. They moved through simulated corridors, weapons raised, facing holographic enemies that adapted to their tactics. "Faster," she shouted. "The real things won't give you time to aim." Nearby, Navigation Officer Paul Johnson plotted intercept courses, factoring in the Voidborn's expected trajectory and the Defiant's maximum safe speed. "This is impossible," he whispered to himself, running the calculations again. "Even if we intercept them, we're outnumbered 50-1. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. Scientists worked on weapons modifications. Medical staff prepared for casualties. Engineers pushed systems beyond their intended limits. Everyone knew what was at stake. In her private quarters, Samantha Reeves, the ship's intelligence officer, reviewed all known information about the Voidborn. Their first appearance at the edge of known space. Their methodical advancement through system after system. The disturbing reports from survivors about harvesting of both resources and living beings. Her screen flashed with an urgent message from Earth. New data from deep space sensors showed the Voidborn armada had increased speed. They would reach Neptune's orbit in 36 hours, not 48 as previously calculated. Samantha immediately sent the update to Captain Sullivan, who called an emergency meeting of senior officers. "Time has just become our enemy," Sullivan told his assembled team. "The Voidborn will reach our intercept point 12 hours earlier than expected. We need to be ready." "Sir," Porter said, "pushing the engines that hard will reduce their operational life by years." "If we fail, engineer," Sullivan replied, "there won't be years to worry about." As the meeting disbanded, Sullivan remained on the bridge, staring at the tactical display. The Voidborn fleet appeared as a mass of red dots, moving steadily toward humanity's home. An alert chimed, indicating a message from Admiral Winters. Sullivan opened it on his private screen. "Greg," her recorded message began, "I won't sugarcoat this. The odds are, well, you can see them for yourself. But the Defiant is our best hope. Your crew is the finest we have. If anyone can find a way to stop these things, it's you. Earth is counting on you. Patricia." Sullivan closed the message and looked around the bridge. His crew worked at their stations, each focused on their duties despite knowing what they faced. "Lieutenant Carter," he called. "Yes, Captain? Send a message to all decks. I want to address the crew." Moments later, Sullivan's voice echoed throughout every section of the massive ship. "This is Captain Sullivan. By now you all know our mission. In less than 36 hours, we will engage an enemy that has destroyed every civilization it has encountered. We are outnumbered and facing technology beyond our understanding. But we have something they don't. We're fighting for our home, for our families, for the right of humanity to exist. History has shown that humans are at their best when the odds are at their worst. The Voidborn may have conquered worlds with ease until now, but they've never faced humans before. Prepare your stations. Prepare yourselves." Sullivan out. In the vast emptiness of space, the USS Defiant accelerated toward its rendezvous with destiny, engines burning bright against the darkness. Behind it, the blue marble of Earth grew smaller. Ahead, though not yet visible, the Voidborn armada approached, unaware that their string of easy conquests was about to be challenged. The USS Defiant reached Neptune's orbit with 18 hours to spare. Captain Sullivan used the time wisely, positioning his ship behind one of Neptune's larger moons. The massive blue gas giant would provide some cover for their approach, and its strong magnetic field might disrupt enemy sensors. "All stations, report readiness," Sullivan ordered as he paced the bridge. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Weapon systems at 98%, Captain," replied Lieutenant Vasquez from her tactical station. "Phase cannons charged and targeting systems calibrated as best we can without a real target." Engineering reports all systems pushed beyond red line, sir, added Porter through the comm system. The quantum drive modifications are complete, but I must repeat my official protest. We're running this ship hot enough to melt the core if we push any harder. Sullivan nodded. Noted, Chief. Keep her together just long enough. Dr. Martinez entered the bridge, carrying a tablet filled with data. There were dark circles under her eyes, but they also held a spark of excitement. Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor readings from the Proxima Centauri attack, she said. There's definitely something unusual about the Void-born shield harmonics. They operate on a rotating frequency pattern, but there's a millisecond delay between each rotation. Can we exploit that? Sullivan asked. Maybe. If we time our phase cannon bursts to hit during that delay, we might penetrate their shields. But the timing would have to be perfect. Sullivan turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Vasquez, work with Dr. Martinez to recalibrate the targeting computers. I want those phase cannons ready to fire on her mark. As the officers worked, Navigation Officer Paul Johnson monitored the long-range sensors. His console suddenly beeped with an alert. Captain, sensors detecting subspace distortions at the edge of the system. Multiple signatures, it's them. Sullivan straightened his uniform. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Red alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship. Crew members who had been trying to get a few hours of rest now rushed to their positions. In the medical bay, doctors and nurses prepared for casualties. In engineering, Porter's team secured loose equipment and manned damage control stations. Put it on screen, Sullivan ordered. The main view screen showed the darkness of space beyond Neptune. At first, there was nothing. Then, like tears in the fabric of reality, dozens of blue-white portals opened. Through each one came a void-born ship, their black hulls absorbing the light around them. My God, whispered Carter from his communication station. There are so many. The void-born armada emerged in perfect formation. At the center was the massive flagship, surrounded by cruisers and smaller attack vessels. They moved with eerie precision as if controlled by a single mind, which in many ways they were. Hold position, Sullivan said calmly. Let them come to us. On the void-born flagship, Supreme Commander Zell Thrak received the first sensor readings of the Sol system. The third planet is heavily populated, reported one of the lieutenants. Billions of life forms, moderate technological development. And defenses, Zell Thrak asked. Minimal. Some orbital platforms, a small fleet of primitive warships near the inner planets. Nothing that can threaten us. Zell Thrak studied the holographic display. What is that? It asked, pointing to a faint energy signature near the 8th planet. The lieutenant adjusted the sensors. A single vessel, hiding behind one of the gas giant's moons. Unusual energy readings, but still far below our capabilities. Interesting, Zell Thrak said. They sent a lone ship to face us. Either very brave or very foolish. Send a squadron to eliminate it before we proceed to the inner planets. 5 void-born cruisers broke from the main formation, changing course, toward Neptune. On the Defiant, Johnson tracked the enemy movement. Captain, 5 ships are heading our way. Estimated time to contact 15 minutes. Sullivan nodded. They've spotted us. Good. Lieutenant Vasquez, are the phase cannons ready? Yes, sir. Dr. Martinez has programmed the firing sequence to match her calculations on their shield vulnerabilities. And the rest of the fleet? Continuing toward the inner planets, sir. Sullivan took a deep breath. We need to make enough noise to get their attention. All of their attention. He pressed the comm button on his chair. Chief Porter, I need all the power you can give me to weapons and engines. Aye, Captain. Diverting power from life support on decks 10 through 15. Those areas are evacuated anyway. Sullivan turned to his crew. This is it. We have one chance. To make them take us seriously. If we can hurt them, even a little, we might buy Earth some time. The 5 void-born cruisers approached with confidence, having conquered dozens of worlds without serious resistance. They didn't expect the small human vessel to emerge from hiding at full speed, weapons blazing. Fire phase cannons, all batteries, Sullivan ordered. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Defiant, precisely timed to hit during the millisecond vulnerability in the Voidborn shields. 2 beams passed harmlessly against the alien defenses, but 3 found their mark, striking the lead cruiser. For the first time in their campaign of conquest, a Voidborn ship took damage. Not catastrophic, but noticeable, a glowing wound in its black hull. On the Voidborn flagship, Zelthrak received the unexpected news with something approaching surprise. The human vessel has primitive phase technology, a lieutenant reported. But they've somehow identified a weakness in our shield timing. Zelthrak's 4 hands clenched. Impossible. Recalibrate all shield frequencies, and I want that ship intact. Their technology may be more valuable than we thought. Back on the Defiant, a cheer went up as sensors confirmed they had damaged an enemy vessel. It worked, Dr. Martinez exclaimed. But they're already adapting. The shield vulnerability is shifting. Can you compensate? Sullivan asked. Trying, but her words were cut off as the Defiant shook violently. The Voidborn counterattack had begun with energy beams of their own striking the human ship. Shields down to 60%, Vasquez reported as another hit rocked the ship. Sullivan gripped his command chair. Evasive maneuvers. Pattern Delta 9. The Defiant spun and dove, its engines straining as Johnson executed the complex flight pattern. The ship avoided several enemy blasts but couldn't evade them all. Engineering to bridge. Porter's voice came through, accompanied by the sound of alarms. We've taken damage to the port nacelle, cooling systems failing. Reroute power. Keep those engines online, Sullivan ordered. The Defiant managed to score another hit on a different Voidborn cruiser, but the aliens were adapting quickly. Their attacks became more precise, more devastating. A massive blast hit the Defiant's starboard side, sending sparks flying across the bridge. A support beam crashed down, narrowly missing Carter at his station. Shields at 30%. Vasquez called out. Structural integrity failing on decks 4 through 7. Sullivan knew they couldn't win this fight, not against 5 cruisers, let alone the entire armada. But winning wasn't the objective. Send a wideband distress call, he ordered Carter. Make it sound like we're in worse shape than we are. I want the rest of their fleet to think we're easy pickings. Carter nodded, understanding the plan. Broadcasting now, sir. The false distress call echoed across space. This is USS Defiant. We've engaged the enemy but taken critical damage, cannot maintain position. Any Earth forces respond. The message reached the Voidborn flagship, exactly as Sullivan had hoped. The human vessel is crippled, a lieutenant informed Zelthrak, but it managed to damage 2 of our cruisers. Their weapons technology is unexpected. Zelthrak considered this information. Change of plans. I will lead the assault myself. Recall the rest of the fleet. I want to examine this ship and its crew before we proceed to Earth. This was precisely what Sullivan had gambled on. Drawing the entire Voidborn armada to Neptune, away from Earth, giving the planet precious time to prepare. As the massive Voidborn flagship changed course, heading toward the damaged Defiant. With the rest of the armada in tow, Sullivan allowed himself a small smile. They took the bait, he said quietly. Now for Phase 2. The true battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The bridge of the USS Defiant was filled with smoke. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the crew as they worked to keep their damaged ship functioning. Captain Sullivan wiped blood from a cut on his forehead as he studied the tactical display. Status report, he demanded. Lieutenant Vasquez coughed through the smoke. Shields down to 15%, weapons at 40% capacity. We've lost Deck 6 completely and there are hull breaches on Decks 4 and 7. Casualties? 23 confirmed dead, 47 injured. Medical bay is overwhelmed. Sullivan nodded grimly. The cost was high, but they had succeeded in their primary goal. The entire Voidborn armada was now moving toward Neptune, away from Earth. Led by their flagship, the alien vessels approached in a formation that reminded Sullivan of a spear, pointed directly at the heart of his ship. Distance to enemy flagship? 300,000 kilometers in closing, sir, Johnson replied from navigation. At current speed, they'll be within firing range in 7 minutes. Sullivan pressed the comm button. Engineering, I need options. Porters, voice came back, accompanied by the sound of hissing steam. Captain, I've got good news and bad news. The quantum drive modifications are holding, but our conventional engines are shot. We can make one more jump, but after that we're dead in the water. Sullivan considered this information. And weapons. Phase cannons are still operational, but they've adapted their shields. Dr. Martinez's trick won't work again. As if summoned. By her name, Dr. Martinez entered the bridge, her lab coat stained with soot. Captain, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. There's something odd about their flagship. It's not just bigger. It's controlling the others somehow. Like a queen bee? More like a central computer. The smaller ships receive instructions and carry them out perfectly. I think there's a central consciousness directing everything, from the flagship. Sullivan's eyes narrowed. So if we take out the flagship, the rest might be thrown into confusion, at least temporarily. The captain stood, wincing at the pain from his injuries. That's our play then. We focus everything on their flagship. He turned to the communications station. Lieutenant Carter, any word from Earth? Carter adjusted his headset. Yes, sir. Admiral Winters reports that they're mobilizing all remaining ships to form a defensive line at Mars. They need at least 6 more hours. Then we'll give them 6 hours. Sullivan faced his crew. Listen carefully, we have one chance at this. When the Voidborn flagship comes within range, we'll make a direct jump toward it, as close as possible without colliding. Sir, Johnson protested, that's incredibly dangerous. The margin for error is very small, I know, but surprise is the only advantage we have left. On the Voidborn flagship, Supreme Commander Zelthrak watched the damaged human vessel with growing interest. None of their previous conquests had managed to damage even one Voidborn ship, yet this single vessel had wounded 2. The human ship is not attempting to escape, a lieutenant noted. They know they cannot, Zelthrak replied. Their engines are damaged. Prepare boarding parties. I want their captain and key officers captured alive for examination. And the rest of the crew? Process them for assimilation if suitable, discard if not. The Voidborn ships moved closer, weapons charged and ready to disable the Defiant's remaining systems. They did not expect what happened next. On the Defiant's bridge, Sullivan gave the order. Now, Mr. Johnson, execute quantum jump. The damaged starship vanished in a flash of blue light, reappearing instantly less than 1 kilometer from the Voidborn flagship, practically on top of it by space combat standards. Fire everything we've got, Sullivan shouted. Phase cannons, torpedoes, and every operational weapon on the Defiant fired simultaneously at point-blank range. At such close distance, even the adapted Voidborn shields couldn't completely protect the flagship. Explosions bloomed across its black surface. Inside the flagship, Zelthrak was thrown from its command platform as the ship shuddered from multiple impacts. Impossible, it raged. How did they— Direct hit to our primary control node, a lieutenant interrupted. Shield generators damaged. Hull integrity compromised in sections 15 through 22. For the first time in the campaign of conquest, the Voidborn felt something akin to fear. The human vessel had done what no other species had managed. It had hurt them. Seriously hurt them. Destroy them, Zelthrak commanded. All ships focus fire on the human vessel. But the damage to the primary control node meant that Zelthrak's orders weren't being transmitted as efficiently to the rest of the fleet. Some ships responded immediately, others with a delay, and some didn't seem to receive the command at all. On the Defiant, alarms blared as the ship's damaged systems struggled to cope with the strain of the attack they had just launched. Direct hits on the enemy flagship, Vasquez reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Their shields are fluctuating and they've got multiple hull breaches. And our status? Sullivan asked. The answer came not in words but in a massive explosion from the rear of the ship. The lights flickered and gravity briefly failed before emergency systems kicked in. Quantum drive just blew. Porter reported, his voice solemn. We're not going anywhere, Captain. Before Sullivan could respond, the ship rocked violently as Voidborn weapons fire struck them from multiple directions. Without the quantum drive, The Defiant couldn't escape. "Shields failing," Vasquez called out. "Hull breach on deck 3. Sullivan knew they had minutes at most. "All hands, prepare to repel boarders. Security teams to all vulnerable areas." The order came too late. In flashes of blue light, void-born boarding parties appeared throughout the ship. The aliens were even more terrifying in person. 9-foot-tall beings of black biomechanical material with 4 arms, each ending in weapons or tools designed to kill or capture. On the bridge, a boarding party materialized. Vasquez and the security team opened fire immediately, their weapons having some effect but not enough to stop the invaders completely. "Get down," Vasquez shouted as she pushed Dr. Martinez behind a console. The aliens advanced methodically, firing strange weapons that seemed to target the nervous system. Crew members fell, some dead, others paralyzed. Sullivan grabbed his own sidearm and fired at the nearest voidborn, hitting it squarely in what would be the head on a human. The alien staggered but didn't fall. It turned its glowing blue eyes toward the captain and raised its weapon. A security officer jumped in front of Sullivan, taking the shot meant for him. As chaos erupted on the bridge, Sullivan saw the aliens targeting specific officers, Dr. Martinez, Lieutenant Carter himself, avoiding lethal force on them while killing others without hesitation. "They want us alive," he realized aloud. Across the ship, similar scenes played out. Engineering fell quickly with Porter and 3 of his team captured. The medical bay was overrun, and security teams were being pushed back on all fronts. Sullivan managed to help Dr. Martinez to the emergency access tube beside the bridge. "Get to auxiliary control," he ordered her. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Her eyes widened. "But it's our only option now. Go." As Martinez disappeared into the tube, Sullivan turned to face the invaders, buying her time with his last stand. The bridge was almost entirely in enemy hands when a void-born officer approached Sullivan, weapon raised. "Captain Gregory Sullivan," it said in a strange, multi-toned voice. "Supreme Commander Zelthrak wishes to meet you before your assimilation." Sullivan was captured, along with the surviving bridge crew. The last thing he saw before being teleported to the void-born flagship was his beloved ship, the USS Defiant, floating dead in space, breached and burning against the backdrop of Neptune's blue clouds. Captain Sullivan awoke in a strange room. The walls pulsed with blue energy, and the air felt thick and hard to breathe. He was strapped to a table that seemed to be made of the same black biomechanical material as the Voidborn themselves. Looking around, he saw other tables with some of his crew, Lieutenant Carter, Chief Engineer Porter, and in the far corner, Dr. Martinez. They all appeared unconscious. Sullivan tested his restraints. They held firm but weren't painful. The Voidborn clearly wanted their prisoners in good condition. A section of the wall slid open, and Supreme Commander Zelthrak entered. Up close, the alien was even more imposing, nearly 10 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian. Blue energy pulsed beneath its surface in patterns that reminded Sullivan of computer circuits. "Captain Gregory Sullivan," Zelthrak said, its voice a chorus of overlapping tones. "Your ship fought well. No species has damaged our vessels in over 300 conquests." Sullivan stared defiantly at the alien. "We're just getting started." Zelthrak made that strange grinding sound that Sullivan now recognized as laughter. "Your bravery is noted but misplaced. Your ship is destroyed. Most of your crew is dead. Earth's remaining defenses cannot stop us." "Then why am I still alive?" Sullivan asked. "Why not just kill me too?" "Because you interest us," Zelthrak replied, moving closer. "Your tactics were unexpected. Your technology, while primitive, was used in ways we had not anticipated. Before we assimilate your species, we wish to understand these qualities." A smaller Voidborn entered, carrying devices Sullivan didn't recognize. It approached Dr. Martinez and began attaching sensors to her head. "Leave her alone," Sullivan shouted, struggling against his restraints. Zelthrak watched with curiosity. "Your concern for others even in captivity. Another interesting trait. Most species we encounter become focused only on personal survival when faced with extinction. The alien commander moved to a control panel and pressed several symbols. A holographic display appeared, showing images of the battle, the Defiance, surprising quantum jump, and its point-blank attack on the flagship. Your ship was outmatched in every way, Zelthrak said. Yet you attacked rather than fled. You placed yourselves in harm's way to protect your homeworld. The collective finds this behavior difficult to process. Sullivan said nothing, but his mind was racing. The Voidborn seemed genuinely puzzled by human behavior. Perhaps there was a weakness there, something he could exploit. On another table, Dr. Martinez began to stir. Her eyes opened, quickly taking in her surroundings. When she saw the Voidborn attaching devices to her, fear flashed across her face, but she quickly controlled it. Dr. Olivia Martinez, Zelthrak said, turning to her. Our analysis shows you were responsible for identifying the temporary vulnerability in our shield harmonics. Impressive. Martinez glanced at Sullivan, who gave her a slight nod. Just basic science, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Your shields operate on a predictable pattern. Predictability is always a weakness. This seemed to interest Zelthrak. Yet the collective's greatest strength is its predictability, our unity of purpose and action. It's also your greatest weakness, Martinez countered. You can't comprehend actions that don't follow logical patterns. The smaller Voidborn activated the devices attached to Martinez's head. She winced but didn't cry out. We are scanning your neural patterns, Zelthrak explained. Your brain activity is chaotic compared to our own. Many processes seem redundant or contradictory. While the Voidborn were focused on Martinez, Sullivan noticed Porter regaining consciousness. The engineer's eyes met his, and Sullivan shifted, his gaze meaningfully toward a panel on the wall where their equipment had been placed. Porter understood immediately. That chaos you see is our strength, Martinez continued, intentionally keeping the alien's attention. Humans don't think as one. We don't act as one. That unpredictability gives us creativity, innovation, and courage. Zelthrak seemed genuinely interested, yet it also gives you conflict, inefficiency, and division. Sometimes, Martinez admitted, but we've learned that our greatest achievements come from our differences, not our similarities. While they talked, Porter had managed to loosen his restraint slightly, just enough to work one hand free. The Voidborn had underestimated human physical capabilities, assuming their prisoners were securely held. Sullivan needed to keep the aliens distracted. Your collective consciousness, is it truly one mind, or many linked together? Both and neither, Zelthrak replied. We are many, functioning as one. Each conquest adds new minds, new knowledge to our collective. And if that link was broken, Sullivan pressed, what happens to individual Voidborn without the collective? For the first time, Zelthrak showed something close to discomfort. That question has no relevance. The link cannot be broken. Everything can be broken, Sullivan said with quiet certainty. The conversation was interrupted when Lieutenant Carter suddenly began convulsing on his table. The Voidborn rushed to examine him, their attention drawn away from Porter, who had now worked his other hand free. What is happening to him? Zelthrak demanded. Martinez, understanding this was a diversion, quickly invented an explanation. It's a neurological response to your scanning devices. Human brains are sensitive to certain electromagnetic frequencies. As the aliens adjusted their equipment, Porter managed to reach the nearby panel. With practiced speed, he grabbed a small device that Sullivan recognized, a subspace transmitter from the Defiant. Carter stopped convulsing as suddenly as he had started, having played his part perfectly. The Voidborn returned their attention to their prisoners, unaware that Porter had hidden the transmitter under his hand. We have collected sufficient data for preliminary analysis, Zelthrak announced. You will now witness the power of the collective. A large view screen activated, showing Neptune's orbit. The Voidborn fleet had regrouped after the attack on their flagship. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation. In 1 hour, we will proceed to Earth, Zelthrak said. Your species will be evaluated. Those worthy will join our collective. The rest will be eliminated. Sullivan felt cold dread but didn't show it. And if we resist? All species resist at first, Zelthrak replied. None succeed. The alien commander left the room, followed by its subordinates. As soon as they were alone, Porter activated the subspace transmitter. I can send one message, he whispered. The power cell is almost drained. Send it to Earth, Sullivan ordered. Tell them. He paused, thinking rapidly. Tell them to broadcast on frequency 957.3. Full spectrum, maximum power. Martinez's eyes widened. The Voidborn's telepathic frequency. You think we can disrupt it? Sullivan nodded. You said it yourself. They're connected through some kind of central consciousness. If we can jam that signal, it might break their coordination, Martinez finished. But we'd need a massive power source to broadcast a signal strong enough. Earth's planetary defense grid, Carter suggested. If they reroute all power to communications arrays. Porter quickly encoded the message and sent it. The transmitter sparked and died after transmission. Now we wait, Sullivan said. And hope Earth understands what to do. In the quiet room, the four officers shared looks of determination. Their ship was gone, their situation desperate, but they had sent Earth a possible way to fight back. It wasn't much, but it was something. Martinez spoke softly. Captain, even if this works, we're still trapped here. Sullivan's face was grim but resolute. I know. But our mission was to stop them from reaching Earth at all costs. We're still on mission. Outside their prison, the Voidborn prepared for their final conquest, unaware that their prisoners had just sent a message that might change everything. The humans had found what appeared to be a weakness. The very thing that made the Voidborn so powerful might also be their downfall. Admiral Patricia Winter stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, surrounded by banks of screens and worried faces. The message from the Defiant had arrived just minutes ago, cryptic but clear in its urgency. Broadcast on frequency 957.3. Full. Spectrum. Maximum power. Can we do it? She asked the chief communications officer. Yes, ma'am, but it would require diverting power from our defense systems. We'd be vulnerable during broadcast. Winters studied the tactical display showing the Voidborn fleet near Neptune. They were reorganizing after the Defiant's attack, but would soon resume their advance toward Earth. Do it, she ordered. Reroute all available power to our communication arrays and get me every broadcasting station, satellite, and transmitter on the planet. We're going to hit them with everything we've got. As Earth prepared its unusual counterattack, Captain Sullivan and his officers remained prisoners aboard the Voidborn flagship. They had been separated into individual cells after their initial interrogation. Sullivan paced his small chamber, wondering if their message had reached Earth and if it would make any difference. His cell door slid open and two Voidborn guards entered. Without speaking, they seized him and led him through winding corridors back to the main examination room. There, he found Zelthrak waiting with Dr. Martinez, who looked pale but unharmed. Your species continues to puzzle us, Zelthrak said, without preamble. Dr. Martinez has been explaining human concepts like hope and sacrifice. They seem inefficient. Sullivan was pushed into a standing position beside Martinez. Some things are worth being inefficient for, he replied. Perhaps, Zelthrak allowed. But it changes nothing. We are resuming our approach to Earth. You will witness the assimilation of your world. The large view screen activated again, showing the Voidborn fleet beginning to move away from Neptune, toward the inner planets of the solar system. Your defense grid has been analyzed and found insufficient, Zelthrak continued. Resistance will end in approximately 6 hours. Sullivan exchanged a quick glance with Martinez. 6 hours. They needed to stall. Before you destroy everything I care about, Sullivan said, I want to understand something. Why do you do this? What drives the Voidborn to conquer? Zelthrak seemed pleased by the question. We seek perfection through unity. Each species we assimilate adds to our collective knowledge and strength. Those who resist merely delay the inevitable evolution of all life toward our state of being. And you never question this purpose? Martinez asked. Never wonder if there might be other paths to evolution? Questioning implies doubt, Zelthrak responded. The collective does not doubt. Their conversation was interrupted by a Voidborn lieutenant. Supreme Commander, we are detecting unusual transmission activity from Earth. Zelthrak turned to the tactical display. Explain. They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, including... The lieutenant paused. Including frequency 957.3, Sullivan kept his face neutral, but inside, he felt a surge of hope. Earth had received their message and understood. On Earth, every communications device, from military installations to civilian radio towers, broadcast on the same frequency. The combined power created a signal that spread throughout the solar system, growing stronger with each passing minute. Back on the Voidborn flagship, the effect was immediate but subtle at first. Zelthrak tilted its head as if listening to a distant sound. The lieutenant at the controls moved more slowly, its movements less precise. What is happening? Zelthrak demanded, its voice now single-toned, rather than the usual chorus. Sullivan saw the change. Having trouble with the collective, Commander? Zelthrak's glowing blue eyes flickered. This interference is temporary. It changes nothing. But already the view screen showed the effects. The perfect formation of the Voidborn fleet was breaking down. Some ships moved faster, others slower. Several appeared to be drifting, off course entirely. The door to the examination room slid open and Porter and Carter were brought in by guards who seemed confused and uncertain. The human transmission, Martinez whispered to Sullivan. It's disrupting their telepathic network, breaking their connection to the collective. As they watched, Zelthrak struggled to maintain control. All ships, maintain formation. Resume. Course to Earth. But its commands weren't being transmitted clearly through the disrupted network. Sullivan saw their opportunity. Now, he shouted. Moving with coordinated precision, the 4 human officers attacked their distracted guards. Sullivan tackled one to the ground while Porter grabbed a weapon from another. Carter and Martinez secured the door to prevent reinforcements from entering. What have you done? Zelthrak demanded as Sullivan approached with a captured weapon. We found your weakness, Sullivan answered. Your perfect unity depends on perfect communication. Disrupt that and you're just individuals, confused and alone for the first time in your existence. The view screen continued to show chaos in the Voidborn fleet. Several ships had collided with each other. Others fired weapons seemingly at random. Many drifted powerlessly, their crews unable to function without the collective's guidance. Porter worked at the control panel. I've figured out their systems. We can send a message to Earth from here. Tell them to keep broadcasting, Sullivan ordered, and to prepare the remaining fleet. It's time to counterattack. As Porter sent the message, Zelthrak watched with something like awe. You knew. Somehow you identified our most fundamental vulnerability. That's what humans do, Martinez told the alien commander. We look for connections, patterns, and the places where those patterns can break. Sullivan kept his weapon trained on Zelthrak. Your ships are connected to this flagship, correct? They receive their primary commands from here, Zelthrak. Didn't answer, but its silence was confirmation enough. Then we're taking control of this ship, Sullivan declared, and we're going to broadcast a new command to your fleet. Working quickly, Porter and Martinez accessed the Voidborn command. Systems. With the collective consciousness disrupted by Earth's broadcast, the individual Voidborn aboard the flagship couldn't coordinate an effective resistance. I've got it, Martinez announced. We can send a system-wide shutdown command to all Voidborn vessels. Sullivan nodded. Do it. With a few keystrokes, Martinez sent the command. Across the view screen, they watched as ship after ship went dark, their power systems shutting down, weapons going offline. It's working, Carter said in amazement. Sullivan turned to Zelthrak, who had sunk to its knees. Your conquest ends here, Commander. Humanity just proved that unity without individuality is a fatal weakness. The massive alien looked up, its glowing eyes dimmer now. What happens to us now? It was a surprisingly human question, tinged with fear and uncertainty. That will be for Earth to decide, Sullivan answered. But speaking just for myself, I think there's a lot our species could learn from each other, if you're willing to talk instead of conquer. Porter had established communication with Earth. Admiral Winters appeared on screen, her face showing disbelief and joy when she saw Sullivan alive. Captain. How in the world? No time to explain, Admiral. Sullivan interrupted. We've taken control of the Voidborn flagship and neutralized their fleet. Request immediate assistance to secure our position. Already on the way, Captain, Winters replied. Earth fleet will reach your position in 30 minutes. As Earth's remaining ships approached to secure their unexpected victory, Sullivan looked out at the now powerless Voidborn fleet. They had conquered worlds with ease until a human warship blocked their path, not through superior technology or firepower, but through the uniquely human ability to find strength in what the Voidborn saw as weakness: individuality, unpredictability, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. For the first time in centuries, the Voidborn would have to learn a new way to exist, not as a collective bent on conquest, but as individuals finding their own paths forward. And humanity, having faced its greatest threat, would emerge stronger, ready to take its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers and, perhaps, teachers to species like the Voidborn who had forgotten the value of standing alone. Captain, Martinez said quietly. What happens now? Sullivan watched as Earth ships appeared in the distance, coming to secure their incredible victory. Now? He replied with a tired smile. Now we go home.